So where are you at? Where are you at right now?
So I'm in New York.
You're in fucking New York.
Right.
It's raining.
So,
You're
yes.
fucking sad. Drinking a Starbucks. What the fuck happened? What's the next step?
It was 7 degrees, man. I got lost. I got lost in Harlem. I had to take different buses to get back to the Novotel Hotel in Broadway. Anyways, that's a true story. But back to the book. So when they tell me that if I can publish that, if I can tell that story that I just told at a bar, 10 o'clock at night, drunk on tequila, then we would publish that. So they were just talking shit, right? They're just fucking, hey, Lash LaRue, can you keep your Spurs from jingling and jangling?
I'm sorry, Steve, I love you. I love you, Steve. No, just kidding.
So I leave the bar, I go to Best Western Hotel in Chinatown, and I wrote the first 45 pages, stayed up till 4 in the morning, and then the next day we meet up, and I go to Kinko's at 7 a.m., and I print copies, and we go for coffee at 12, and then bam, I give them 2 manuscripts, and I'm like, what's this? It's the new manuscript. You told me if I tell the story that I was telling last night, then you publish my book. And they got the book, they started reading it. And then like a movie, man, Tony tells me, can you stay for another month if I cover you financially? You got nothing to worry about. He's a very rich lawyer, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking here. So I stood for a month, and we ended up going to bars every day, writing poetry, revisiting the work for like 8 to 12 hours a day. And Miguel would wake up in the mornings at 4 a.m. in the morning. He's like, Valentin, go to page 82. That metaphor is wrong. And I'm like, what the fuck, So that's the real motherfuckers, and that's a real game. And so it upped my challenges. I'm like, I want to be there. I want to represent El Paso, the region, in that world-class fashion. That's really just a combination of discipline and focus and tenacity and the stick-withedness of it all. And that's kind of the subtext of Thrivation, The stick. I dig that. So this book here is my second book, Power at the Pass, and the way that I came to be, I went to a magazine party at the DoubleTree, and I met Bobby, Don's wife, Steve's dad, and she asked me what I do. I told her I'm a writer, and so she brought me over to meet Don. And Don was as cool. I mean, both him and Bobby are always high fashion, high style, always looking sharp. They're quintessential Manhattanites, or New Yorkers rather, Bronx and Brooklyn. But so I go up to him, and he's cool with his martini glass, and he looks at me up and down. We start talking, and he invited me over to his building to meet him and give him articles and some of my material. So I did. That's when I first met Steve, and we go and we talk. And it was just cool, it was like real Americana, it was like real business in El Paso. It wasn't Austin, it wasn't like Silicon Valley, it wasn't Phoenix, it wasn't LA, it wasn't Manhattan, it was all of that here. And in a very historic building that is really what El Paso is, right? I mean, look at this right here, Socorro with this, 1700s. And the Shapiro's building from 1945, made by General Motors to make Jeeps for World War II. And so it's like imbued in history and richness and texture. And so that's essentially what I brought to the book, because Don had 2 other writers. One was a Harvard guy, the other one was a guy from Austin, like big names and big towns. And they just didn't cut it. And I think for one, they're not from here. I'm not discrediting their credentials or their capabilities. I just know that when I read the manuscript, it was whack. It sucked, and I needed a lot of work, and it just made me realize that with me saying that, it's because I actually care about the scenarios. I care about the craft. I care about the story. I want to find something that keeps me healthy and on the up and up in here, and so I took it on, and I didn't really know how it was going to get from where it was to where it's at now. I had no idea. I'm like, fuck, I don't know how this is going to happen. So I bring in guys like Richie. Richie Marufo is a professor, EPCC, UTEP on occasions, and he's just always been like the voice of El Paso's like different neighborhoods and coming ins and coming outs and You know, so I knew he would bring something to the equation. I brought in Carlos Fidel Espinosa, who's got his book out, How to Lie to a Border Patrol Agent, something like that, right?
How to Lie to a Customs Agent.
How to Lie to a Customs Agent.
Yeah.
And so he helped me with like 2 chapters, and he killed it. He fucking did great, you know. And so I brought in Dr. Viescas to give me like a chapter breakdown, give me like a mind mapping of how I can tell this story, you know, in a way that's cohesive and it
Who's
drives.
the first artist there?
The first artist in residence was, as a matter of fact,
Richie
it was
and
actually.
Yes, was there. I just want to know.
It was you. It was you, baby.
Oh, okay.
It was right the two.
Okay,
Man.
just
It was
How
always
crazy
you.
is that?
Just
There's
making
three,
sure.
there's three
Making sure
twos right here. This is like an
you know.
isosceles triangle right here.
How
Bam.
fucking lonely were we on the balcony looking at the fucking mountains and the stars? We were fucking battling.
You should ask Steve. You should ask Steve and let us do that again.
No, I don't know.
Go to the
No.
balcony.
I love you, Steve. I'm not gonna ask you shit. You whatever get whatever opinion you want.
I found
Like-
too many roaches.
Yeah, no, I know.
The cockroaches, right? No, so